Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Abdallah. I'm a software developer from Mauritius. So today I'm going to share a bit the preparation for my upcoming presentation on the largest and biggest IT Dev conference in Mauritius, which is going to take place from 20 to 22 July, which is very near actually, less than 20 days at the Coda Arts Center in Mauritius. So we are going to talk about innovation, technology, and of course, build a community or where we see the existing dev communities, which is quite good to be honest. And so for me as the presentation, so yesterday I've already been checking out the technical things, and I think it's pretty nice. My subject. So just quickly look. Let's just look at. By the way, I'm not using Arc browser. I'm just using Brave. Try to copy Arc, I think, but that's good with having difference. So we are having a notification here that I thought it was just Ubuntu updating me, notifying me that I need to update my operating system. So we have so many good speakers, in my opinion. I know quite a few of them, so it's going to be a excellent presentation. Just looking a bit after me, expert, productivity writer, blogger. Yeah, that's pretty good. So this is some description about myself, how I work in different technologies. So that's good. And then about the agenda. So we have a lot of talks actually, a lot of presentations because we have four different mm, places to present: Andromeda, Pandora, Titan, Tatooine. So I am quite early. We have the registration, opening ceremony, and so on and so forth. And we have our good friend here boosting Python with Rust. Wow, this is great stuff because Rust is very fast. And then I am here at noon, so I need to eat before, get some good coffee as well. And yeah, I can also see some excellent talks presentation as well, especially quick. I was looking forward to it and some good stuff. So for me, so this was only the introduction. What I saw nowadays, the explosion of agile. We have a lot of new roles: software developer in test automation engineer, QA automation engineer. So indeed, there is huge demand for this, and I've seen people joining as either manual QA or software developer, but within a few weeks, if not months, they are actually writing automation codes. So that's pretty good. The initial what I've actually written was a bit what I actually submitted. Was a bit different. Let's see. Yeah, so it was a bit the same. Just some notes and comments. So yeah, this was a description. The notes and comments was about. I don't think I'm going to be talking about everything because this, I mean, it's going to require a half day to be honest, a half day. So I will just maybe introduce the topic on test automation, why it's very relevant nowadays, and it's an interesting topic as well. And then the tools, especially Playwright, but how does Playwright differs from Selenium, Cypress, and Puppeteer? And of course, we need to get the built-in features. Yeah, Playwright is very powerful. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And why compare to others? Why use it? Of course, it has the cons as well. And one of them is that it can be a bit difficult to get started. There is a learning curve, but it doesn't matter because I think Playwright is pretty good. So let's just remove it for a moment. I'm just going to make some notes right now. Um, some brainstorm about this without going too much detail, because I need to understand that the time limit is around time limit. We call that time limit, yeah, 15 minutes. Okay. So, alright, quick brainstorm. Just anything that's going on my mind. Selenium, Cypress. I have Puppeteer. Hey, as usual, Puppeteer. Also have WebDriver IO, Appium, screenshot, diff testing or visual testing, subject I know quite well. And then we continue. Which other things? So I'm just thinking. Playwright, obviously. Playwright origins. Why? Real case scenario. Use and develop by Microsoft. So we are not Microsoft bashers any longer, because Microsoft has been it's open source, has been giving us some outstanding open source technologies recently, so there is no need to do that. Okay, so that's a bit the theoretical aspect as well. Theoretical aspect, the need, the importance, and maybe needs for automation. Test automation in regards to test automation in regards to DevOps. You also have CI/CD. When I talk DevOps, it's really CI. CI/CD. It's not the same thing, obviously. Pipelines. It's pipelines. Actually, it's all separated automation in itself. So, like we see, it's a huge topic, and it's impossible to cover. Even if I just introduce all the main the main description, basically the outline, it's impossible to cover it in 45 minutes, so I need to choose. Life is all about compromise at the end of the day. Okay, the theory. Go here, and then we. Okay. Automation. The CI/CD, importance and needs of automation. So of course, the title is very important to keep in mind, because otherwise I may just divert from it, and that's not something we want to. Software, right, all caps. Is there a way to uppercase? Nice, no worries. A software engineer's guide to. We need to also be describing what is a software engineer nowadays, because we are not talking about only a developer. This is like a purely developer, you're only doing some code. This is for the past 10 years or even more, this has been deprecated. But it's a developer nowadays does a lot of things, test automation. For engineer, it's not software. So of course, uh, companies nowadays use the term software engineer, software developer um, interchangeably, but maybe that's not really the case. I would suggest for me, a software engineer is someone who works on the whole engineering aspect. So when we talk engineering, is like you work on requirements gathering, you work with the project manager, PO, or product management, you work with the the testers, you work with even customers. You're a bit like, you're not restricted to one part. For example, a difference might be with a implementation or a technical, how you say, what the correct words, support, technical support might be different. For example, you just reproduce the error, for example, and then if needed you scale it. So software engineer, in my opinion, is a bit different, but of course, like I said, companies use them interchangeably. So we talk developer, we talk QA, QA or tester if you wish. We talk, when I say software engineer, right now, especially in this context, is just an umbrella term. It's not the umbrella company. Resident Evil, of course. Developer, QA, tester. We also talk about, so there is quite a mix in it. Automation test, automation engineer. So it's nowadays like it's used interchangeably, but here like it's no longer really manual. It's changed a bit. And for me, one thing is very clear is that ChatGPT, AI in general, might replace some part of development world, but manual testing it will never replace. So in my mind, my opinion is that manual testing won't ever be replaced right now. It's too complex, too difficult. It's a huge process, so that's how it goes. So, okay, just this is the most important part of it. The features that we have, features of benefits. So I will talk a bit about that later. I need to refine the outline, obviously, and I could actually just written a draft. One way I would usually write my previously my presentations is writing a draft. So nowadays just typing in we have this and here why what you want and need to learn, things like that. Just write the draft, but I found that just doing that I tend to get into a micro focus, and I will just instead, just for example here, if I just start by writing a draft, I can go very deep in one of these subtopic, and at the end of the day, I just lose time and I become good. The topic itself is quite elaborate, but there is a lot of other things I tend to miss. So that's why I start with an outline, and I find that outline much better. Of course, we need to always have a deadline. I'm not putting it right now because I don't really know. Depends, because I will work on this during the weekend, and of course when the actual Devcon conference is very close, I try to go a bit faster, and then maybe we have a technical demo, which is important to grasp because we need to understand that the title itself is Software Engineer's Guide to Test Automation using Microsoft Playwright. Okay, so some research to begin with. Let's see right now. Let's talk a bit about Selenium. It's a very good piece of technology. It's industry standard and it's huge. It's very huge. Selenium is important as well. Ensure that you take it in your food. It is a mineral found in the soil, but no, it's Selenium Dave. We also talk about Cypress, Playwright, obviously. And I think Puppeteer is actually a great Puppeteer 2Ps. It's a great library. It's a great framework actually, but it's not really for I would say both of them. Oops, they are not really targeted. They are really for automation. Puppeteer automation first. They are used a lot in scraping, especially Puppeteer. It's very powerful. It has some awesome stuff here. So of course we need to talk about limitations the of existing frameworks or libraries or even tools. At the end of the day, I think they are tools. And this will tie down a lot to why with Playwright. The limitation, I think, is it's quite interesting. For example, I will just go briefly, and like by default, some are automation tools. first and foremost. That's we need to understand. So then you need to use other libraries to do the assertion, while with Playwright it's different. It's built first for your test, and then you have a lot of the configuration. One thing I find quite uh, a pro or something negative is that lots of config. I've just brainstormed right now. Cypress in particular can become slow as your test scale. That's one thing I saw. And limitation, we have other limitation to talk about. General limitation, for example, with Cypress, you can only use one tab at a time, so that's a bit limiting, especially if you have to check if when you click one link it opens in other tabs. So with Cypress you can do that. Selenium has issues with flaky tests, especially. It's not an issue with Selenium per se, but this is really an issue with modern SPAs and like very dynamic DOMs changes and manipulation. And of course, you also have like a lot of microservices. So microservices definitely makes the use of microservices make test automation very hard, because you difficult, if not impossible, to track the the timing, the exact timing. So even if you use like the different weighting strategies, it's not enough. If not, it's not enough. Something I will go deeper during the presentation, because I think it's very important. It's not enough. Like you have implicit weight, you have implicit, explicit, and even one fluent testing. But this is in Java, if I'm not mistaken. So you have different strategies, but they don't really work, and they will be flaky. And the big problem is that, in my opinion, having worked on them for like 2 years on and off, but I was a software developer, engineer, please, with with a focus on test automation. So this was my bread and butter. It was my how I get my salary in the morning, generally speaking. So I found that it's you need to write a lot of code to do that. And to a degree, Cypress solved this. Less flaky tests, obviously, but it's not. It was not designed. It's actually designed to tackle some of these issues of flaky tests, expired elements, like more reliable uh, interaction with UI elements. For example, you wait for when you click, you have a form. For example, you have a form, and when you click on submit, so button is disabled. So this is a bit more precise when to do with Cypress for sure. But Cypress as well will have a problem with not exactly knowing when this element become disabled. So the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that apart from flaky tests, you have in most of them. I'm not sure it's always the same. Like Playwright totally addresses it, but from the marketing side of Playwright, I can say that indeed Playwright knows how to address this, because it's been designed from the ground up to address this particular point, and which is all about making your tests run in less time. It's maybe you don't understand the right now when I'm explaining, especially if you're new in test automation. You don't, maybe it's not something that you might think about. Let's say with Cypress, your tests take 2 hours to run, or even let's say 1 hour, because end to end-to-end test, it's very like the types of testing, just write it here. For example, the parameter of testing, a bit of an introduction, some theory, underlining theory. So introduction, I'm getting more ideas. Introduction, importance of the background of test automation, testing and test automation. The automation, so we won't use background, actually we will use origins. It sounds good. It's like Arkham Origins, the game. I know it. Okay, it's very important to mention Toyota production system, but maybe I'm not sure if I even mentioned it. TPS and Agile Manifesto, the theory, and DevOps. How say that? Stuff about DevOps. DevOps, that is continuous integration plus continuous delivery. So there are two different things. Before I thought they were the same thing, but eventually they are not. And of course, this outline will become much bigger, but I will also be editing a lot of part with it. So yeah, it's related to what I just written. Let's say you need to publish from push changes from dev to let's say your trunk. So this is based on the trunk based development. This is a topic I like. Maybe I want to discuss later or present in one of the upcoming meetups, one of the upcoming communities. So from dev to trunk based development, for example, and you want to do that for your QA to test the changes. So normally when we apply the trunk based development, we move to a quite fast pace, and you want them to quickly test the changes. But this is where the problem can come. If your test takes too much time, then your QA might have to wait a lot, and then it's the trunk. It's like a queue. It's stuck rather. But let's imagine it's like a queue, and then you have other developers pushing their changes as well. So they might overwrite yours, or maybe the point is that your QA need to test your changes fast, and if your test takes too much time, so it's not good. One of the advantages apparently with Playwright is very fast. So I'm not a total novice with Playwright. I've played with Playwright a few times. I've worked on spikes. I've worked on different test automation projects, prototypes, and but the reality is Playwright is huge. It's not a new framework. It's been existing for quite some while. It's been being used. It's been used, existing for a while internally at Microsoft. Use it especially in conjunction with the development of our good old friend VS Code, which is nowadays very powerful. So this is something I will be going much into depth. But in this video, this is just the process of the preparation for my talk, and of course technical demo will take a lot of time, so I'm actually getting warm up to talk. I can just keep talking for hours right now. Okay, so my main aim is obviously this is the brainstorm, this is the proper outline here, which will be far more concise. And one pro tip, if you write technical articles a lot, if you have a blog and you post often, one tip is you can just do like I did, because I've been blogging, I've been writing technical documents for the past 10 years or so, and instead of just starting with a draft like I mentioned earlier, I think it's much better if you start with a brainstorm and then you remove and start again with the outline and select the important things, and like it's you have a story that you follow, and it makes it much easier. And of course you don't go into too much depth. Like right now you already see that I'm going too quickly, I'm going too in depth with this part and this part, and of course I forgot one important part. Topic subtopic really is anti-patterns, uh, anti-patterns in front, and I would say front end development that makes testing really hard. But this one I think, I'm not sure, because this one I think can be a, in my opinion, it can be a topic by itself. All right, so let's go. Let's continue to the real subject of the day. The real star is the Playwright. The Playwright the Playwright framework. It's huge. We have the GitHub, so on and so forth. So by default, we have it works on all modern, all the most used browsers: Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari. Any browser, any platform, one API. This is good. This is very good. Because sometimes I've worked with, for example, Selenium, and there are some adjustment to do. But of course, generally speaking, I think the adjustment were really for. I think the application didn't really work well with Firefox, so of course you need to do some adjustment. So use Playwright API. It works browsers, cross-browser, cross-platform. This is good locally. Headless is important because when you run it on your pipelines, you want it to run headless. So it's very important, and you have a really good UI tool as well. Okay, test mobile. This is very interesting. The native mobile emulation of Google Chrome on Android and mobile Safari. This is important because I think by default you don't have it in Selenium. I'm not sure about Cypress. I think at Cypress you need to add external. Cypress you can do it, but you need to add external plugins to do that, packages, depending on the technologies you're using. So resilient, no flaky test. So I think this is quite interesting, to be honest. It's a wait Playwright waits for elements to be actionable prior to performing actions. Okay. So quite the auto wait is interesting. If you work on test automation a lot, you know how this can be tricky to achieve manually. Like I actually just mentioned it with Selenium. It has also a rich set of introspection events. The combination of the two eliminates the need for artificial timers. This is really good. Artificial timeouts do two things. One is flaky tests, of course, and second, it increases the overall amount of time your tests take. So when you run it to validate things, when you run it on pipelines for your QA, for manual testers to test it, or for yourself to test it, or for the product owner to test it, you have to wait a lot, and this can be an issue. The tracing, yeah, I know it. Is very good. Like I said, also web first assertions. Playwright assertions are created specifically for the dynamic web single page application. I would say thank you AngularJS, thank you Angular, thank you React, and thank you Vue, and maybe some others like Solidity, Quick. The question, they brought a lot of good things, but they made the web a bit too dynamic, very dynamic. So this automation frameworks, automation libraries, tools struggle to keep pace. But here we see that the good thing with Playwright, it's web first assertion. Checks automatically retry until. So this is good, huh? Because otherwise you need to retry yourself, especially if if you need to write the code. If you're using fluent assertion, for example, in Selenium, you need to write the code yourself. But here it does it for you, so I think it's really good. And the tracing is good. Configure, test, retry strategy, capture, execution, trace videos, screenshots. So this is all the good stuff. I won't lie, this is good stuff. And you, to a degree, you have it in Cypress. And with Selenium, you don't have. You need to add a lot of external packages, and even then, it's not as good as Cypress. What I've saw, so Cypress is really good in that, and you have the tracing. You have the tracing as well, but you have something more interesting here. Screenshot to eliminate flakes. I don't see I've ever saw it in Cypress, so I'm not an expert Cypress developer. Obviously, I've had a couple of projects running on Cypress. Alright, so we also have multiply everything. Test scenarios, span multiple tabs. So I think this is a job to Cypress. Test scenarios that span multiple tabs, multiple origins and multiple users. So origins here, I think it regards to having multiple domains, um, because we have the issue sometimes, especially locally, with with cross origin scripting. Cross-type scripting, yeah. Trusted events. So, wow, this is very good. This is one. This is my favorite part. Test frames. Pierce shadow DOM. Playwright selectors pierce shadow DOM and allow entering frames seamlessly. So if I frame, you can. It's very. It's like it's done for it. It takes all of those things into consideration, especially the shadow DOM, because this is something I will talk much more during the presentation. I'm even thinking that I won't have time for a technical demo actually, because when we talk about this, just the introduction, the theory behind Playwright, I think it will take all the time. I'm not even sure if I will have time to do a technical demo because right now, just if I've just explained a bit of all these features, it takes a lot of time. So you have browser context. This is in regard to browser profile. You have login once. Yeah, save the authentication state. So yeah, this is something I also saw with Cypress, and it's really, really good. And you have the tooling as well. Yeah, the tooling is really good. It's excellent. It's outstanding. And one of the reasons, like many of the languages like TypeScript, even Rust to a degree, have been so successful is because they are the community support and the tooling. They are very powerful tooling. You compare them to long-standing languages such as Fortran, such as even Haskell to a degree, some good languages, but their tooling is not as good. That's why they don't have this adoption, while you have it with Playwright. And like Playwright, TypeScript, and even Rust. So that's pretty good. And for example, you have a VS Code extension that's very comprehensive, gives you a lot. So Playwright is not like an open source project from here and there. It's actually been developed internally by Microsoft, and it's existed for quite some time now, but it's still quite new. The polished version, the open source polished version, the official version is quite new. I don't have the date in time, I think 2019 or 2020, but this is something definitely that I will be adding to the presentation. I will just go and look a bit around. And it's used by a lot, like I said. Apparently, this needs to be confirmed. It was designed to test Visual Studio Code, the end-to-end, especially it's used Bing. It's used a lot in Microsoft products, obviously. Adobe as well. React Navigate, React. We see React everywhere. Like you even see that this page is using the production build of React. Open the developer tools and Components profile tabs, and it will appear to the right. So nowadays I'm a React developer. I'm full stack developer, and I see so many websites using React. And this is supposed to be Microsoft. Microsoft is a huge collaborator in Angular, along with Google and many others. Yet you see React, you see React all over the place. So, like we see, you can use Playwright in Node, Python, Java, and .NET. It's very good stuff. And in terms of so you it's huge. Like when you look at the documentation, it's quite a learning curve. That's a cons. But I think you spend 6 months, 3 to 6 months to learn everything here. It's brilliant. This is my favorite spot of Playwright by a huge margin. And this is something that's very difficult to do with Selenium. But I know you can do it with Cypress. Is to mock API requests. So one of the teams I worked before was using Selenium, and we have the challenges. We have this particular challenge because we were using distributed architecture, aka microservices, and many of our API calls were from external systems. So for end-to-end tests, we had no real way we didn't have test data. So the question th- that was asked was how to have these tests consistent, because the data was not um, test data. It was not fixed. It could be changed. So we needed to build a system to mock the data. It was a lot of work. A lot of work. Actually, I suggested we could do the same test with Cypress, because with Cypress you have the hand into mocking API call, and well, it wasn't taken into consideration, but this doesn't matter because now you can do it with Playwright, and it's the same. It's a bit almost the same. Let's say you want to always have a list of breeds, but let's say you want a list of maybe absences or a list of products that doesn't change, you can just do it. Here you can put your fake mock data, and you can also read from your project. That makes it really interesting. Very, very interesting. This is, I think, one of the biggest part of end-to-end test, because even though with end-to-end test you want to test the most reliable and the most, as what is the correct term, you want to test as close as the user experience. Obviously there's something it's not easy to replicate. Let's say for example you're using Twitter API to get some data. Of course in production you will use it, maybe a little bit, maybe in staging, but you don't want to do it each time your pipeline runs. You don't want to run it each time you create a merge request, because it's going to cost you. And this is why the importance of mocking API requests in end-to-end projects. You have screenshots, page object models, so POM, very, very important as well. It's an example using TypeScript because I'm using Node, but if you would have selected .NET with C Sharp, so you see how it works. If you work with POM, it's a bit almost the same. So right now, maybe I will be presenting in Node.js, but I'm not even sure if I will have time to actually go for a technical demo. So you have the entire guides. Here you have the migrating from Puppeteer, migrating for testing library. Yeah, that's good. That's very good. This is an interesting point, but this is huge in itself. So let's say you have your using JS and things like that already. You can actually migrate some part of your testing code into Playwright. So I think that's brilliant. You can integrate CI, Selenium Grid, so Docker obviously. So like you see, it's huge. We have an awesome community. Welcome. We have ambassadors. You can meet them. You can have a talk with them. Wow, this is something I maybe should put at the end of my presentation. Corey House, I know him. Can see that. So these are really famous developers, ambassadors, you can say. Alright, this is good. I think it's good for me. We have a Discord as well. I have so many things to talk about. The blog is as interesting as well. It's already almost 40 minutes of this video. So it's actually a Sunday morning right now, and in winter in Mauritius, so it's a bit chill of weather, the temperature as well. And yeah, so for me, I shall continue. I think I'm going to change a bit strategy because there are so many things to talk about, so many benefits, so many features, so many good things with Playwright. And maybe I won't really have time to do technical demo, but we will see because I have a good friend already sitting here. For example, here the code in NeoVim, you have a to do application. For example, you have some. We go to this page, do MVC, and then we do some stuff here. We expect some stuff. We await, so awaiting is pretty good. And yeah, maybe I'm not sure I will do a technical demo, but sometimes there will be some code, some snippets of codes. For example, I know one particular trick you can use is to directly interact with the DOM. Um, so I'm not sure exactly what is in the documentation. You can interact directly with the DOM elements and do some waiting stuff, some good stuff. By default, like you see, you already have the auto wait for all these actions, so that's brilliant. And even for the assertions, and you also have extensions, so it's very powerful. It's not it's modern. It's Playwright has been designed to tackle the modern web. Despite I see a resurgence in server side rendering. Okay, so I think there are two things I want to mention just before ending today. Is one is you can do API testing right off the bat. You don't need this is something you can also do with Cypress, by the way, but you can just do the API testing and you can mock certain part of them, so it's very very good. And then you have also another one, I can't see it right now, screenshot testing. So screenshot testing I presented earlier in the previous test conference about visual testing, and you can do it right off the bat without any external libraries with Playwright. For example, you can do it, take screenshot, and you can compare all of those good stuff. Here it is, visual comparisons. Oh, it's good, it's really good. I like it. You can run it on Docker. So it's been a good presentation so far, and of course, this is just a brainstorm, and the outline will be quite different. And of course, I need to get the PowerPoint presentation as soon as possible. So I would say have a nice day and see you later.